Right here with Dr. Scotland in his garage. These are Canadian
These are
things.
all my Toronto teams.
Yeah.
So I got my Blue Jays, my Toronto
so we're
Maple
definitely
Leafs.
in the garage.
We are, yes.
We've got the dual force plate, Swing Catalyst dual force plate. So anyone who watches my videos, I've got a single. This is dual, so it's measuring feet, lead and trail individually.
Yep.
What can the average learner learn from how they use their lead and trail foot to maybe think about getting some hip clearance?
Some more rotation, yeah.
Let's give them some help and see what we can do. So lead foot, trail foot.
Okay, so up here we have our torque that you've had on your single plate forever, right? This is how you're trying to spin that plate underneath you to create rotation.
Okay.
One that you've obviously struggled with quite a bit.
Yeah, it's my weakest suit.
Sure, and so one of the main ways, you can see right when we hit the peak of this force, it's right where our individual foot, toe, heel shear forces are peaking as well, in opposite directions. And so the analogy I always like to give, if I got this bottle and I want to take the cap off of it, what do? I push in one direction with my finger and another direction with my thumb, and it makes it easy to twist.
Okay.
And so that's exactly what your feet are doing to the ground in the golf swing. We're trying to push in opposite directions to create rotation.
Yeah.
And what we know from testing quite a few good players on here is pretty much, I have not found anyone who we don't want more force out of their lead foot than out of their trail foot. Because if I have two forces acting on my pelvis, the force coming off the ground that acts on my right hip is actually shoving my hip towards the golf ball.
Okay.
And if I have too much of that and my pelvis moves towards the golf ball, there's no space for my arms here. I got to manipulate things to try to hit the ball.
Get contact, yeah.
And so the force coming out of my left side is actually shoving my pelvis away from the target, or away from the golf ball, which obviously then creates more space down here. And so we want generally about double the force out of this hip than out of this hip to create, or out of this foot, to create that movement away from the target. And the analogy we always give is with, like a box or whatever you want. We'll put this down on here, and if I just wanted to spin this in place, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna push in this direction with this finger, and this direction with this finger, and if I do it, it spins right in place.
Yeah.
A lot of golfers that maybe aren't so good or struggle with kind of not getting too open to it will do this. They're going to push harder from here than here, and that box actually, it spins, but it moves towards the golf ball.
So just do that again. So which side is the golf ball on?
Okay, well, we'll put a golf ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we go.
So think about this is
my pelvis.
This is lead foot.
Yeah.
This is trail foot, and
here's
you're
the golf
hitting this
ball.
way.
Yeah.
Now, if you apply more force here,
then here.
So think trail hip going forwards to try and open your hips, which is
Sure.
a common thing people would think of.
And you'll see that
it pushes you towards the ball.
And you see now there's no space for my arms to get in there and actually let the club.
And how many people have filmed their swings and they get into impact and they're kind of bunched up and
Sure.
stuck, standing up, those kind of ideas.
And so we try to cue people to do the opposite and get a lot more force from here than here, and that net result of that would be that.
Yeah.
And so now see how I've opened up all this space for my arms to come in and do what I ever need to do to hit the golf ball. And so getting more shear force out of that lead side is going to be pretty important.
So in context there, in effect, you're saying if I'm going to try and get an impact position, which lots of people want to do, where they're here maybe more than kind of getting stuck up in here, and we see high handles, maybe shanking it, lack of club face control, because you are going to then have to manage it with other rotations in theory. Now, be careful. Look, if you're hitting the ball really well, playing good golf, and you're someone that does kind of get up into it, keep playing.
Keep going.
This isn't a one kind of idea fits all. That's the beauty of measuring. You're always going to find your balances. But this is certainly a common issue that I see people trying to practice, of trying to, get more open at impact. And if you're doing it by trying to shove this forwards more to open up, in theory, you're moving that box. I mean, the force is just inevitable where it's going to go.
It's going to go towards the golf ball.
So if I understand what you're saying correctly, you're saying more that if I was to almost feel like I'm pushing this there more, so lead foot, knee coming forwards more, that's going to push me in effect as I hit the ball kind of back here.
Back there, exactly. And this is where, when we started to try to get this with pressure, a lot of people would say, I want to get into your lead side heel. So and I've seen people that just kind of fall into their lead side heel and they kind of do this.
Yeah.
And they don't get that push, and that kind of throws the club out and can create some awful kind of wipey shots. And I think a lot of people kind of abandoned the idea of getting open because they were doing it wrong, right? They were just falling into the open position, and so they were chasing a position rather than
using
how
the forces to achieve that
100%.
position. So just to give you an idea as well, because Scott's going to do a drill in a second, which is, I would call it off course. It's a drill that you would do, I mean, I would do what you're about to do, we'll show you at home.
Sure.
to create a feeling that you then bring to the hitting environment. Because if I just try and move what Scott's talking about there, and bearing in mind I'm quite experienced of trying to move forces and pressures on a plate because I've played on mine a lot, it's still very abstract. And I still feel like, you know, should we just move the net over there a little bit? Because it's so disconnected from other swing thoughts where, like, you know, if I'm thinking, take the club here opposed to here, well, that makes sense because I'm trying to swing the club up through a direction.
This direction, right.
Now when I'm starting to think down here, it can be abstract. So doing what Scott's just about to do can be so good at making sure when you go to the range and you do try to then put the feelings in, that you've got a solid feeling that you can take to this position. So let's show you the drill.
Sure.
So you've got this pole here. You could use anything that you can fasten basically just like an exercise band.
It's just an exercise band, and I've actually taught people to do this as a warm-up. So like you can tie it around the cart, the golf cart handle or whatever. Anything that's not going to move, as long as it's solid, it's pretty good to do there. You can just hold it at your hip if you want. I actually like to, we talked about moment arms earlier, create a little bigger moment arm. Kind of
okay,
get it
so you've got
outside
it
my
just
hip there.
attached to your waist there.
Just
basically.
to a golf club. Yeah, you kind of want it down around your pelvis, around your butt.
Yeah.
And your goal is to produce a force that stretches this band. So you're going to do like a backswing move and then a downswing move.
Okay.
And feel like you're really trying to get aggressive, stretch that band. And my foot never does this in the golf swing.
Yeah, so do that again for me.
That
yeah.
is the type of force I'm trying to produce.
I mean, just imagine doing that 3 times a week. You're going to take that to the range and have a very different concept of how to turn those.
Definitely. And like you said, getting over a golf shot and thinking about that might be a very abstract concept. You're like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to. But just doing this drill a bunch and having it bleed over into your golf swing, I think is great. So you're training a pattern, which is laying down neural patterns in your brain that will hopefully carry over to your golf swing. And
if you do that one more time for me, you're taking golf posture there, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're trying to, you're not standing upright. And I mean, listen, Scott's like a bit out of breath because he's using it as a physical.
I try to be as close to golf as possible. So you see, I'm kind of in my golf posture. Yeah. And I try to do my golf backswing, like lower body wise.
Yeah, yeah.
Do my golf backswing. And then what I want to do too is get up and out of it like a golf shot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you see some people, they do this drill and they kind of go like this. And I'm like, that's not how you hit a golf ball, right? You want to get up and out of it.
Yeah.
And you do. It'll get you breathing a little hard, which
is good.
We can't forget that this is a sport, right?
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So we're basically going there.
Yeah.
And I guess you would create as much tension as you want.
Sure,
as in if I'm feeling a bit like this is hurting me, I might come in a bit
closer.
with less tension.
And I like...
and that now feels a bit more like a realistic...
Sure.
But then you can start to really push it out if you wanted to, because I can now, so basically this is just pulling me this way.
Sure. And you see where it's mainly on your left side. So that's creating that force where you really got to learn how to activate that left foot. Yeah. And produce that shear to really stretch it.
And you'll learn things like, so if I was to go, like you say, if I was to go in here.
Yeah, it's going to be.
So where my knee kicks in.
Yeah.
Like I do feel like I have to then get back to level
before
I can start activate that, and that's in a downswing. I ain't got time to get all that out if I want that force out at an earlier time. So it then even starts leading into ideas in your backswing that start to become more, okay, if I was to load a bit more just slightly and not way across, this objective, if this is the objective, makes so much sense.
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
There you go. And that's where I use this
he did a lot of them. I've did like 2 and I'm done.
And I use an older club because it can put quite a bit, once you get good at it, it can put a bunch of stress on the shaft. So
right, so you'd use an older club.
I use an older club. This is, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 sets
an
ago.
old Hogan, yeah.
So, because I've seen people that get their graphite shafted irons out and they start bending a little bit. I get a little bit scared. So yeah, if you have an older club, or you can just hold it on your hip. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it.
So instantly now, if I bring that straight away, because you could do that at the range, there's plenty of poles, you could take that in your golf bag.
Yeah, I actually wrap it around the handle of a golf cart, which is great, because it's a pretty
sturdy thing. I'm instantly now feeling like that. Like if you give, it makes me think of, I do the one sometimes when I'm trying to hit it fast, where I'm going like this for 5 goes and then hit it. Yeah. And you see spikes.
Sure.
You get you out of breath.
You've been moving that mat just with those.
Yeah. Where if I was to do 5, 10 of them, come in quick as I can, then try and do the same feeling with that shot. I mean, you can see how much I'm really
that left
jumping
foot's really
out
moving.
of that.
Yeah.
And I'm out of breath now as well.
I know, and it's
too much golf has been too gentlemanly, isn't it?
Totally, we got to realize this is a sport. You know, it being athletic, and that's what, you know, a lot of these young kids now that are out there.
Well, I think this is the first year that we've had all major winners in their 20s.
Yeah, and they're athletes. I mean, Scheffler and Justin Thomas and all those kids.
Some of them, they're luckily athletes. That's what annoys me. They are just genetically very
gifted.
Strong.
Yep.
Us weaklings have to work at it.
Well, I mean, they all work at it. I mean, Justin Thomas may look like a genetic guy, but he's in the gym a lot, and they're working at it. So, like you say, I mean, I think it's a combination.
I'm just jealous.
Yeah, I agree. Me too. But I like the combination, right? Like using physics to be more efficient in your actual swing, then working on your body and working on your flexibility and all those things together. It's what every good player does. So, if you want to be good at this game,
get the
exhaust
physical
all avenues,
absolutely. And what I love, how many of you down the lens have struggled with trying to get your hips opening or what have you, and I know so many would be trying to think about this going way forwards.
Or just getting the pressure into their heel, which is just falling into it instead of actually having
as in just trying to move into this heel, where actually with that drill, I'm feeling like I'm trying to load up the toe as hard as possible, and then what happens is, the reactions happen rather than it's inevitable.
Sure, I like it.
Thanks, Scott, very good. See if that helps, let me know. It's warm here. Can we not get aircon in here next time, please?
It's California in the summertime.